Hi friends. So I heard you all when you said you'd like to see a full tutorial of these little flowers I did. To me, they're a little bit reminiscent of maybe a poppy. I had a lot of fun with them, and I was actually had made the original video to show pops of color, really vibrant colors, and using a neutral, which is one of my favorite things to do. I love to have this pop, this boldness, and then this beautiful neutralizing with the greenery. So I'm going to be painting that today. This is also a great exercise if you're not using glazing for watercolors. Oh my goodness, you guys, so exciting, so fun. I can't recommend it enough. Although I'm predominantly a watercolor artist, I have never found the ability with another medium to do this. I'm not saying it's not possible, but for me, that if you're not doing glazing and layering with your watercolors, my gosh, you're missing out on a whole wonderful, beautiful, magical quality in watercolors. So let's go ahead and get started. This is the color I'm going to do today. I am loving this color right now. Our hills are filled with the poppies, you guys. So that's what inspired me. I'm going to be painting on my Meeden. This is the 100% cotton, and these are a block, which just means it's sealed on all four edges for beginners who might not know what that means. If you have your Artisto, absolutely. That's what I painted this one on, as well as this, is I just use my Artisto pads. You know, I love those. Here was a little exercise, by the way, I did for glazing on YouTube. So definitely use this beautiful Artisto paper, or you can use your Meeden. And then I'm going to be using a new palette I came across, and this is Phoenix. As you know, I love Phoenix. So I opened them all up, and look at the great colors, you guys. I swatched them out here. Look how pretty. So they've got some really pretty reds in here, and I'm going to mix them with a lighter version of their Permanent Rose. This is Quin Magenta, which, oh my gosh, okay, years ago, for Winsor Newtons, which I used all through college, Quin Magenta was my go-to. But now they do have this Permanent Rose, so I'm going to mix the two, some reds. I'll use some greens in there. So I'll swatch those out in just a second. But the fun thing is I'm also going to be using, I've been playing with their, gosh, what do they call this set? They call it, I keep wanting to say flesh tone, but it's skin tone, same thing. And when I saw this, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to order this immediately because I think they'll be really pretty blended with those pinks, which I found they were. So I'm having a ton and oodles of fun with those. I swatched out a bunch here. So look at these really pretty blushy toned pinks. Aren't those gorgeous? I'm always playing with colors, so that's the colors I'm going to be using. And I don't know if you can see in here, but I've got the flesh tone, or now I forgot again what they called it, skin tone, down in the base. And then I used like a neutral green, which I actually mixed with sap or tree green if you have the My Lang palette, sap green if you have Winsor Newton or Daniel Smith, and I mixed it with a little bit of pink. All right, let's get started. I'm so excited. So maybe you'd like to see me swatch those out. So let's swatch out some of those colors really quick. Let me find a blank piece of paper to swatch for you. Here we go. All right. I'm going to be using, you can use my Debbie Walker Art brush, which is currently sold out. We're going to bring him back the end of summer. But this is the 6 long round, which is fine. You can also use the Princeton Velvet Touch 8 round, which, you know, I love. It's so nice and snappy. It has a perfect point and a great feel, you guys. Beginners, if you're going to invest in one brush, this is about $10, and it's a size 8. It's the Velvet Touch round. Great brush. Okay, let's get started. So I'm going to start, let me mix my or scoop my palette over here. So I'm going to be referencing this because I haven't memorized their colors. I actually am going to mix the Quin Magenta, you know, my favorite. And by the way, I think in here they've got, this is 24. It's predominantly single pigments, which is important if you're mixing your colors because you know exactly what you're going to get. And the light fastness on these was almost all 3, which is the highest level of light fastness. So I'm going to mix those Quin Magentas. Let's get that on my palette here, or on my paper here. And I'm going to mix it with, let's mix it with, we'll try maybe the pale terracotta, and then maybe this beautiful kind of sienna. They're calling it mid-brown. And let's see what we get. Okay. So let's start first with Quin Magenta. I'm going to grab a little bit of that and mix it. This is just an inexpensive piece of paper, by the way. So that is Quin Magenta, and I'm going to write these down so I too remember them. And then let's mix that, what did I say, with the mid-brown, they're calling it, which kind of has a goldish color to it. Ooh, look at that. That's an interesting pink, isn't it? I love that, actually. Let's try that Quin Magenta, and then let's mix it a bit with a little lighter color. So that pale terracotta, I think, could be really fun. They've also got, let me see, what's this color? It's kind of a peachy color. Yeah, well, it's called peach. I think that could be pretty too if you like a little bit more pinkish color in there. Ooh, that one's pretty. That one's really pretty. Let me put a little bit more of that in there. Yeah, I kind of like that one. To add just a touch more of that Quin Magenta. Ooh, that's really pretty. I like both of those. They're very similar. And then the other one I want to swatch is, let's see what we get with the Permanent Rose and both of those. So let me write down what I mixed here. This was Quin Magenta. And I first started with mid-brown. And then this one was Quin Magenta plus terracotta, or terracotta? Yeah, pale, oops, I just painted on myself. Pale terracotta. Okay, and then let's do the Permanent Rose. And you can find really similar colors in your My Lane palette, by the way, too, in case that's the palette you have. So here is, ooh, look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? Their colors are really pretty, you guys. Really, really pretty. So this reminds me of almost a touch. This has more of a blue purplish. This has almost like, gosh, what is that color in Winsor Newton? 1 second. Oh, Opera Rose. It reminds me a little bit of that Opera Rose in Winsor Newton. So let's do the same thing here. We're going to mix it with that mid-brown. It's a little bit paler, so a little bit lighter pink. Let's add a tad more in there. Yeah, that is a little bit lighter, I feel. So let's add that in there. So this is Perm Rose plus mid-brown. And this is so much fun, you guys. This is the kind of stuff that really excites me. Like, pull out your swatch sheets and just play with the colors. So here is our Perm Rose, which to me really reminds me of Opera Rose a lot, actually. And then I'm going to mix it with that pale terracotta, which is really a fleshy color. To add a tiny bit more of that. Ooh, really pretty. If you happen to do faces and things, these would be awesome colors. So this has a little bit more of that purpley bluish undertone, which should make it cooler. This I feel like has a little bit more of the yellows, maybe just a little bit warmer. So Perm Rose and Pale, I'm just going to put the initial, Pale Terra. Okay. So, boy, which one should I use? Oh, by the way, then for the leaves, I'm going to use a green. So let's take a peek at their green. They've actually got sap green. So I'm going to just use that sap green. Let me get some of that here. And then I'm going to mix it with, it'll be some of it by itself, and I'm going to mix some of those colors in it because that'll give me this neutral. So that's a little bit purplier. Purplier, is that a word? So let's try the Permanent Rose. I want it just a bit warmer. Although I still got a neutral out of that definitely could be used. But let's see what we get with that and the sap green. I think, yeah, that's the color I really was going for. A little bit warmer, which is exactly what I thought. So it's similar to this, but a little bit warmer. And it gives me more of that yummy, really depth of a green. So let's write that down. So this was Perm Rose. This is a little bit cooler. This is Sap and Quin Magenta. And it's just a little cooler. Perm Rose plus blah, blah, blah. What did I use there? Oh, Sap Green. And I think I'm really liking that. And when in my florals, I'm always trying to add in the green leaves colors of the flower because it just creates this really pretty transparency. So let's see, I'm trying to decide what color for the flowers. I'll kind of use a mix of all of it, you guys. What I'm going to do, and what you'll need if you're going to paint with me, is either the big thing in glazing is you want to make sure that you're letting the layers dry. So I use this little handy dandy heat gun, especially in the winter because it's cool and things take a little longer. If you have a blow dryer, you can use a blow dryer, or just the old fashioned way, you just wait. So let's do our first one, but I will be using my dryer just for the sake of time, I suppose. And I usually do. Let's see. I'm going to use the 8 round. Or you can use my Debbie Walker art brush, 8 round. Mine's still packed right now. Okay. So let's start first. Let me kind of draw in so you have a little bit of a guideline. This is my handy dandy pearl wings, black wings actually. So I'm going to have one come out like this. And this is just going to kind of guide me. I don't want to put too hard of lines in there because I don't want them to show up since we're doing this beautiful kind of transparent look. So I don't want to have too dark of lines in there. And then maybe another one right here, which will make a little bit more of a bud like that. And then we'll have one in front. There we go. Oh, I got a little dove. I wish I could show you a little dove visiting me over here. Okay. Oh, you know what? Let me roll over that just to lighten it up. Excuse the camera shake, because I really don't want those to show through my painting. Okay. Wetting my brush and tapping it off because I don't want too much water in there. And what I'm going to start with first is a very light wash. And I think I'm going to go for, that Quin Magenta. I'm trying to decide which one I want to go with, guys. I almost feel like I could hear you talking to me. I'm going to go with the Quin Magenta. So there we go. That is this one here. So I'm going to pick some of that up and put it in my palette here. There we go. And let me scoot this over so you can kind of see my palette. I know you like to see how I'm kind of mixing. There we go. Let's scoot this up a bit. So I've got some in there, and it's very movable. And I'm starting in glazing. You want to start with very much a lighter shade. So if you need to kind of throw some on here first, see, that's a nice light shade. Light value, which means about 80% water, 20% pigment. That's what I want. So I'm going to go in here first and just add in my first petal. So point of my brush going up, and I'm opening that belly kind of on its side. Little bit more water, scrape, scrape, scrape. There we go. Now, the key here is, number one, this is going to dry a lot lighter. And as we add layers, it's going to darken where I add the layers. What I did here is I went in, and this is where I want to use, I think I'm going to use a little bit of that permanent rose, because that's a little bit redder. See that? And I'm just going to tap in. Ooh, look at that red and the pink. Is that like, that's gorgeous. Rinse my brush, wipe, tap it off on a towel, and now I'm barely touching with the tip of my brush and bringing it down. So I've got these wonderful little strokes in there. I can wipe off my brush again and just pick up some of that, tapping it off. There we go. And again, pulling down with the tip of my brush. But now, here's the thing. This is where I want to use that nude color. I'm going to, let me add some of that nude. I think I will use the mid brown, which is how they have it listed on here. So I'm going to add that in there. It has some yellow, light value, tap, tap, tap. And I'm going to just tap that in here at the base. Look at that beautiful color, you guys. Is that gorgeous or what? And then I might just go in and add a tiny bit more. I'm just dabbing the tip of my brush in there and tapping in so little amount around the edges. Rinse my brush, tap it off on a towel, and now just lightly pulling down some of those beautiful little lines. Now, you don't want to go in and do any more leaves, you guys, or petals, you guys, until you dry this, because you want it to be layered. If I go in right now, it's just going to all blend together. So I'm going to use that handy dandy little heat gun. These, I think, are about $12 to $15. I'll find my link and put it in there for you. Here we go. And I can tell when it's dry because, number one, it'll get lighter in color and it won't be shiny. So there we go. Pretty quick. Okay, so that's our first layer. Now, here we go to the second layer. I want to use the same value as I did here because we're building the color by building the layers. So super duper dry here. Going into that pink again. Maybe I need a little more water, and you can test it out. So I've got that same value. That's what I want. A little bit more water. And now I'm going to go over here and add in my second petal. So starting here, you want to make sure all your petals are coming back to the center of your flower. So I need to turn this a bit. Sorry, guys. Because I don't want to block it with my hand. So point and come in. Now, I don't want to move around too much where the previous paint is, because then I'll just reactivate it. Okay, so now I've got this transparent petal over the first one. I'm going to go in and do the same thing. Tap in to that quin or permanent rose. And just Tap in around the edges like that. And rinse my brush, tap it off on a towel, and now I do that same thing. I'm pulling down with my brush, and if you can see here where it's overlapping, glazing over, it's a little bit darker in color. That's what we want. And I think I'm going to go ahead and take that mid brown, which is so weird because I don't see that as a brown, but that's what they're referring to it as. Oops, wrong one. Mid brown, okay. Putting a little more in here, tap, 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 and going in and also adding that into the base, just like we did with this one, okay? So this is already drying, but I'm gonna give it a quick shot. Done. And we're gonna go in and make another petal over here. So back into that pink, and if you need to swatch it out, remember, swatch it out to make sure you have that light value. And let's create another petal over here. Pick up a little bit more of that. I'm gonna add a tiny bit more. Just like that. Okay, rinse my brush and pull that down. And again, you can see where it's overlapping, it's getting a darker value because now I've got 2 layers of that pink. I go into that Quin Magenta, I'm sorry, Permanent Rose, and going to just tap in around the outer edge. Might need a little bit more of that. There we go. Oh, so is this so pretty, you guys? Like, this is truly where the magic is. Rinsed my brush, tapped it off on paper towel, and just using that teeny tiny point, you guys, with the lightest pressure, a light hand. And I start pulling that color down into my petals. So I've got this look at that. Isn't that so pretty, you guys? Rinse my brush. I'm gonna grab some more of that mid brown, which to me looks a little bit yellow ochreish, or in your Mylane palette, I would say it's the yellow ochre. And tap in here. Oh my gosh, you guys, you gotta try this. There you go. So we've got another, look at how pretty. See the overlapping? Ah, I get so excited. Okay, I'm going to rinse my brush. Let's give it a shot again. And again, you can use a blow dryer here if you have a blow dryer. Okay, we're gonna do 1 petal in front, just like I did here, and it'll be the darkest, so it's popping up in front. So we go back in to that, I gotta keep remembering these colors for Phoenix, in Quin Magenta, and you guys, their colors are really rich, they're great. If you guys wanna start and you wanna try something, you know I love Paul Rubens, the Phoenix palettes are really awesome, you guys. So that gives you a couple different choices. So let's go in here, and I'm going to create that front petal. So coming down a little bit more, just pick up a tiny bit more of that. And what I love in, you know, these palettes, the way I pick them is, number one, their color choices that they're putting in there, as well as, you know, single pigments. To me, that's kind of an important thing because it gives me a little control over the results I'm getting when I'm mixing colors. If you have 2 or 3 pigments to make like their blue, if they used 3 pigments in there, 3 different colors of blue, what happens is you're not sure what the bias is and you could get kind of a funky color. Okay, so I'm gonna go where single pigments, you know, you're just getting that one single pigment. I'm gonna make this a little bit darker, and then I'm going to pull down. So rinsed my brush, and now I pulled down. Just like that. Ooh, look how beautiful. Oh my gosh, you guys. Look at how pretty that is. And now we'll go in for that mid-brown, which to me definitely could be yellow sienna in your Mylang palette. And oh my gosh, so pretty. Now, before that dries, I want to go in and use, let's see, they have an olive green here, a beautiful olive green. It's actually the sap green, so I might just add a touch of maybe that mid-brown in there. So let's do that. Let's grab our sap green. They also have a beautiful hooker's green. So here's our sap green. Oops, let me move that over. And I got to do this before that dries. And then I'll go in and add some of, actually, let's add in a little bit of the pink color we used. Ooh, yeah, look at that. So pink and red opposites. And I'm going to tap in here really quickly. And what's going to happen is because this is wet, oh my gosh, look at that beautiful color. You guys, they do have some gorgeous, gorgeous colors. Okay, so let's come down here. Ooh, look at that. Oh my gosh, I get so excited. Okay, while that's drying, I am going to, and if you can see there, look, they literally look transparent, don't they? And you can see that beautiful glazing. Just love it. I hope, please, please try glazing if you're new to watercolors. So much fun. Biggest tips, make sure you dry each layer. And use the same light value for each layer. Okay, let's go into our second little flower here. I'm going to make this a little bit more of a bud. I don't know. Let's see. So I go into that pink, tap, tap, tap. Let me turn that so you can see. There we go. There we go. That's better. So picking that up, it's pretty watery. Tap, tap, tap. And let's start off with our first petal here. So point using the side of my brush. There we go. So I've got this, again, light value. Now I'll go in and add in that red. Where's my red? Or it's actually not red, it's actually permanent rose. And add it in just around the perimeter. Ooh, look how that spreads. So pretty. I mean, you could almost just leave it like that. Rinse my brush, tap it off, and now I go in and start pulling that down. And it looks like these beautiful veins in your petal. Look at that. So fun, so beautiful. Now I'll go in there with our mid-brown. Look at that, how the watercolor just, whew, it's like magic. Love it. Okay, I'm gonna give it a shot. Their palettes, by the way, you guys, are really not only great quality, they're really reasonably priced. And they've got professional sets if you prefer the professional. But I think their student artist grade, what they're calling artist grade, is just as wonderful. This has been a fun set too. I've been playing like heck with this one. Oh, okay, back to our pink. This is dry. So I'll make this one a little bit different. Pick up that pink, tap, tap, tap. And I'm going to come up through here. Maybe something like that. So now again, since I am adding another layer, it's, oops, going to be just a bit darker where they overlap. Now I'll go into that beautiful red. I'm calling it red. It's actually called Permanent Rose. And we're gonna go in around the edges just like we did everywhere else. Ooh, so pretty. Oh my gosh. Oh, I so hope you guys try this. Rinse my brush, tap it off, and start pulling that down. There we go. So pretty. I feel like I need a little bit more red to really give it that extra little punch. And then I'll pull down again. Oh, you know what? I didn't rinse my brush. See, it ended up darker. That's okay. There we go. So I'm not sure if you can see, but where it's overlapping, it's a little bit darker. Then let's dry this and maybe put one little petal right in front here. So let's do that real quick. I always thought this layering and glazing like this looks so, the word that always comes up for me is like ethereal. Oh, you know what? I forgot to put that, the mid-brown in there, darn it. Okay, we'll make up for that in this last petal. But anyway, going back to that, I always feel like it looks, the perfect word, ethereal. I love that look, almost magical and serene and beautiful. And if you missed my series, it's for everybody. It's free for Patreon members. I did a whole week long all about color theory, and I talked about mixing neutrals with pops of color so that the pop of color is just a little bit warmed up and grounded. And this is a neutral color here. Okay, so let's do our last little petal. Let me see, just a little bit more. Again, tap, tap, tap. If you need to test that out, test it out. And I'm gonna go up here. There we go. Ooh, that was too dark. See, that was too dark. So I'm just gonna pick that up real quick. And then we will pull that down. And I don't want to fiddle again in there too much because it can activate everything underneath it. And now it just becomes a mix and you lose that beautiful transparency. I'll go in now with that more red color, the Permanent Rose. And let's just tap in if I can see where I'm going here. I'm going to extend that a bit. There we go. Rinse my brush, start pulling this down. Ooh, so fun, so pretty. This is magic, you guys, like truly. I just love how this looks. Now, I don't want to miss that mid-brown, so let me get that in there. And then I'm going to go in with that green we mixed with the pink and the green. Oh, so pretty. Okay, where did I mix the pink and the green? Let's see. We'll start over here. Let's put some of that sap green so you can see it. That is sap green. In my laying, that would be tree green. Let me get rid of some of that. And then I'll add in a tiny bit of that pink. Ooh, there's that beautiful neutral, and look at how well their colors mix together, you guys. And then I'll tap in here. Ooh, look at that. There it goes. Watch it go, guys. And bring this down. There we go. I'm gonna make a little thicker and some of that pink. There we go. Ooh, that is really a dark shade. Yeah. Love it. Just tap in. Isn't that gorgeous, you guys? Now let's make some leaves. So I'm just gonna do the leaves, just regular leaves. So here we go. So I've got this, I wanna do a zigzag type thing. So I'll bring one leaf here. There we go. And point press. Want a bit more green in there. There we go. Mix a little bit of that in. Point press. Point press. Like that. Ooh, look how pretty that, oh my gosh, this, I hope you guys try this. And I think I'll bring a leaf. I always like tucking in leaves behind my flowers. I think it's just a really cool look. So using the tip of my brush, I'm going around this flower here. There we go. And we've got this fun leaf coming out there. So we've got a zigzag. Let's add one more here. There we go. Let's get our sap green. Point press. And we've got that there. Now I'm gonna go into those and I wanna add in a tiny dash of pink. So maybe we could add that in like that, maybe here, because leaves, if you really look at them close, they always have a little bit of the flower color in them, right? The most obvious example to me is always roses. They have that reddish color in them, but look how pretty. Now, if I wanted to go, I'm gonna dry this and I'm gonna put one more leaf right here. Although I was kind of trying to keep it somewhat simple, but I wanna show you if I was to add a dark leaf here, how it'll just pop out. So let me dry this real quick and this will be the last thing. Oop. Oop. Okay, and let's go in for a pretty dark green. So, dark in value, meaning it's probably 80% pigment or paint, 20% water. And let's just come out right here with, let's see, oops, I touched that, zig, zag. So I feel like I could, let's see, maybe we could have a petal here. Let's try that. So I'm coming out like that, and now let's do our petal overlapping. Pick up some of that pigment. Ooh, yeah. Like that. Now, if you notice, that really, it popped out in front, right? Because it's a darker value. So now I almost feel like I need a little one right here, point press, like that. Look at how fun that is. And then I can even lift a little bit of this. With a dry brush, like that. And add in a touch of pink around the outer edges to kind of define it. There we go. So pretty. Oh my gosh, I hope all of you guys try this. And I almost feel like I want to add some more, but I'm not going to. I do want to just add a tiny bit more to this one to make this front pop out. So I've got my pink in there. the Quin Magenta. Wanted to make sure I call it the right thing. And you've seen me do the push and pull. So I'm just going to put a tiny bit more of that in there. Maybe some of the Perm Rose, because that color's so beautiful. And now, oops, I splattered. I've got a damp brush. And there you go. Now, just pulling down. Maybe even lifting a little bit there. And I think I'm done. I hope you guys give this a try. Such a fun little process, such a fun way to work with watercolors. And truly, if you're not working with glazing and layers, oh my gosh, it's like a must, because that's watercolor's gift to us. That's where a lot of the magic is for us. Give it a try. I am unbelievably thankful for you guys here. You know, Ray and I put so many hours into this, and it makes it so worthwhile when we hear how well you're doing and how much you're enjoying this. So thank you for just being here. I love waking up every morning and seeing your comments, your pictures. If you want to join Patreon, you can post photos there. We do have a free membership with lots of goodies. And the Patreons also, so many of you ask me, how can I tip you? How can I help? You know, we spend a lot of money on supplies, and you can do that there as well. All right, everybody, happy painting. I'm going to be right here reminding you, you are an artist. Be you. Have fun in this community. Play, experiment, play with the colors, play with the layers, and see what you create. And I will be right here. All right, happy painting.